Welcome to the virtualinstructor.com podcast episode 3. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at how to draw glass, and I'm going to be using colored pencils in this demonstration. I'm just going to do a straight, simple wine glass on a table, and I've taken a photograph of a wine glass, and you can find this photograph on the main site at the virtualinstructor.com. And just follow the links to this lesson, and you'll be able to see the image that I used, and you can download it to your computer and follow along if you'd like. I'm starting out on gray drawing paper, and I'm using Prismacolor colored pencils for this demonstration. Prismacolor colored pencils are my favorite. They're very soft and very easy to blend, which is going to be important in this demonstration. I'm also starting my drawing out with the Prismacolor pencils instead of a graphite pencil. If you start with a graphite pencil, you'll probably find that your color's muddy when you start to layer colored pencils on top of the graphite. So it's a good idea when you're doing a colored pencil drawing to do the entire drawing with colored pencils from start to finish. And I'm starting my drawing off here with a dark brown colored pencil. This is pencil I'll normally use when I'm starting a drawing because it's a nice dark pencil. It'll create some contrast. And since we are doing glass, I'm going to go ahead and define the highlights first, because when you're drawing glass, the reflections are so important to creating that illusion. And if I start with the darker values, it's going to be harder to go back and add those lighter values, which are so important for the contrast that I need to create that illusion of reflections. So that's why I'm starting with the white right now, and I'm looking at my photo reference, and I'm focusing on the shapes that the reflections are making in my glass, and I'm just trying to mimic those shapes as best as possible with my white colored pencil. You know, when it comes to drawing media, everybody applies their drawing media differently because we're all different people and we're all different types of artists. But I found that there are 5 things that you can keep in mind when you're using colored pencils that will almost ensure that you have a pretty successful colored pencil drawing. And the first thing is to create a heavy application of colored pencils on the surface so that when you're finished with your drawing, it almost appears like a painting. The colors are really rich and developed, which kind of leads me to the second tip, and that is to layer your colors. So we're going to be putting color on top of color on top of color, and by layering the colors, you're naturally going to create the illusion, or actually the reality, of a heavy application of colored pencils. The next thing is to keep in mind that colored pencil drawings do take some time. It is a time-consuming activity to do a colored pencil drawing correctly. And the next tip would be to save your details for last, because you can go on top of colored pencil that's already been applied to the surface. Now, in the case of the reflection, that kind of goes against that rule because we're basically defining the details first, and then we're going to put some contrast around those details. And the 5th tip is to just simply mix your colors. Seldom do you have just the color that you find in your colored pencil pack that fits the purpose for whatever you're trying to add color for. Most of the time it's a better idea to mix those colors. And speaking of color, while I've been talking about the 5 tips, you notice that I'm adding a little bit of orange and now yellow to the areas of highlight that exist on the glass. This is one of the reasons why I chose to use colored pencils. In my photo reference, there's a nice contrast between oranges and blues that are happening in my photo, and I want to accentuate that. So I'm going to add a little bit of yellow and orange over the top of some of the areas of highlight. Then logically, right after that, I'm going to start adding some blue areas too. And all the time I am looking at my photo reference and I'm trying to pinpoint those areas of blue and orange and the shapes and lines that they make. Now that we've got our highlights defined, this is where we're going to really make things happen. We're going to make the magic happen. I guess there's not a better way to describe it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that dark brown that I used at the beginning, and I'm going to start to establish the areas around the highlights. And you might be wondering why I am not using a black. I am not going to use a black at all in this drawing. Black is a very strong color and can tend to make your drawings look flat if you're not careful. So instead I'm mixing a natural black, and to do that I'm using a dark brown and I'm going right on top of it with a dark blue. And I may go back in some areas and put that dark brown again. And you have great control over your black when you do this. If you want a cooler black, you can add more blue to it. If you want a warmer black, you can just simply add more brown to it. I'm also doing a technique called burnishing. So once I put that brown and that blue down, I may go over the top of it in areas with the white colored pencil. And what that is doing is it's going to work the white colored pencil into the surface. It's going to create some smooth transitions of value, and it's going to make the colored pencil application appear a little bit more smooth on the surface. Now let's talk for a moment about how we are creating that illusion of glass. Well, to create that illusion, it's all about contrast, really. It's the contrast between the highlights and the shadows, and that difference is going to help create that illusion. I am really trusting what I am seeing when I'm doing this drawing. I'm really paying attention to what I see in the photo reference and putting that information down on my paper. And if I trust the photo reference, I'll be able to see those areas of strong contrast, and when I apply it to my surface, well, glass will appear there. The problem most people have is they let their mind get in the way of what they're drawing. And what I mean by that is they will say to themselves, hey, I'm drawing glass. Well, I need to draw glass this way that I've always drawn glass. And usually it comes out looking not like glass. It comes out looking like, I don't know, something that's not glass-like. Instead, you need to trust what you're seeing and really pay attention to the reflective areas and simply draw what you see, and the result will be, well, the illusion of glass. So I'm going to continue what I did here in the upper part of the glass, down at the stem, and again at the base of the glass. And again, I'm just establishing contrast by drawing in dark brown in between the highlighted areas, and then going over the top of that with dark blue. And occasionally I'll burnish areas with the white. Now, once I've got those darker areas established, I'm going to use a colorless blender, which is basically a shaft of transparent waxy material. You can see it here. It's produced by, well, the one I'm using is produced by Prismacolor, and it basically allows you to mix the colors on the surface without using a color with it, without changing the tonality. So once I've established the basic shape and the highlights and shadows on the glass itself, it's time to really make this stand out. So I'm going to add a little bit of contrasting area around the glass in the negative space, and it will really bring everything together. It'll make the glass actually look transparent. Then I'll hit that with the colorless blender. That'll make my background nice and smooth. Then I'll brush away any extra shavings, and my drawing of a glass is finished. Don't forget, for more free art lessons like this one, head over to thevirtualinstructor.com. And you can head over to the Facebook page as well at facebook.com/thevirtualinstructor.